All right, good morning, everybody. First topic, gone are the days. So from a listing perspective, fill in the blank for me. Okay, so gone are the days in which we what? Now, what's changed? So this hot market, lots of buyers, multiple offers, craziness, appreciation. So what do you think is gone? You know, if I said gone are the days in which what do you no longer do because of this market in the listing process? From a marketing process of your listings, what do you no longer do? What gone are the days in which? So hit the chat. Let's see what everybody has here. Getting easy listings. Yeah, listings are a lot harder to find. That's due to a lot of the lack of move up opportunities for a lot of folks. We market and advertise. I'll talk about that, Peter. Stage listings, homes sit on the market. I remember gone are the days in which so you're kind of saying things that you used to do that you no longer do. What is it that you no longer do because of the current situation? Okay. Door knocking. Okay. Well, yeah, because of COVID, things like that. Okay, keep them coming, and you guys can read through those. I'm going to hit something that we talked a little bit about on Sells Me. I know you guys can't really see this, but this is my chicken scratch of the old process and what I kind of think the new process is. Jamie is working on putting a visual together for this that you could use in a listing presentation. So let me tell you what I think gone are the days in which. And then Mark O'Brien's here this morning for a coaching session. So Mark, thanks for joining us. We're going to talk about the recent post that one of the UAR attorneys put out there about a REPC that's marked is not on appraisal, but is on due diligence. There was, I don't know if you caught this, Mark, but there was a little bit of a retraction, I guess we could say. So Curtis, I think, finally came around to what he kind of missed. So,
right.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that too, guys. Gone are the days. Let me pull up my Word doc here. All right, number one to me is gone are the days in which we rush to put a property on the market within 5 days. And I'm going to be a little blunt here because the MLS told us to. Okay. So why have we, traditionally been in a hurry to get listings on the market? It's because the clear cooperation rule that says that once you list the property, have a signed exclusive right to sell, you have 5 days in which to have that on the MLS. Well, what I'm posing this morning is those days are gone. And what I mean by that is every listing with these current market conditions, and there's an exception to every rule, guys. So I'm talking about 90+%. Okay. I know there's an exception to every rule. So you don't have to light it up with all the things that are not. I'm talking about most of the time, 90% of the time. Get the exclusion form signed when you take the listing. So you really step back and think about this. Why in the world are we in a hurry to throw these listings on the market in 5 days? Can we get a house ready in 5 days? I mean, that's really tough. How about this? It's not just putting it on the market is the thing. We're talking about an endeavor. So I'll ask you guys, what is our objective here? What are we trying to accomplish? Why would someone list with you? List with Berkshire? I mean, why not just choose other options? So what is it? Tell me in the chat. Why are they choosing you? What is our, main objective here? And when you get that answer, then I'm going to ask you if we can be that ready in 5 days. That's why, getting a running start at this. What's the correlation? Okay, so they're choosing us because at the end of the day, Julie, you got it right. It's to net the most. So if you haven't memorized this yet, memorize this line. We're not trying to find a buyer. We're trying to find and close the best buyer. That's a different a battle, isn't it? We're not trying to find a buyer. We're trying to find and close the best buyer. So it goes back, I'm begging this question, how can we really do that if we're not ready? And why are we doing that and trying to hurry in 5 days? There's something else to consider. If you do hurry and you do try to get it on the market and you find a buyer and you close, you could be running into an unintended objection, which is, why are we paying you $50,000, $40,000, $80,000 of commission when your job in their eyes, was done in 7 days? I know there's more to it, but believe me, I hear a lot of objections. Agents say, hey, they're asking me if we can lower the commission because the property is going to sell this weekend. See, we're not looking at it right. That's why this whole idea of gone are the days. So I think we need to bury that, you guys. I think we need to bury this idea that the MLS is going to tell us, our clients, that we need to be ready in 5 days to put their property on the market. The fact is, it's not ready. It's got to be cleaned, organized, staged, painted. Photography needs to be right. And we're not going to just do the photography just because we're in a hurry. We're going to do it because the weather allowed it to, and it's beautiful. We're going to be patient. So if you're going to take notes on this, I put gone are the days in which you put a listing on in 5 days. I think in the other, it's related to this, but gone are the days that you don't explain the clear cooperation policy. I think you've got to inject that into your discussion because it's the reason. And you're going to see that you'll have the exclusion form. So you have a moment there to address, why are we signing this form? Right? Why are we signing this form? Well, the reason for that is we're not going to be ready in 5 days because when we go to find the best buyer, we've got to be ready when we hit the market. Are there cases in which we do this often, and this is the pattern in our business? Yes. Think about how we launch projects. Do we hurry to launch a project just to put it on the market and then do the rest of the marketing later? No. We get it all ready, all organized. Then we put it public facing. Then we market it. So it is kind of odd that we've kind of fallen for this, and I get it. In the eyes of a clear cooperation point of view, the MLS is simply saying we want fairness. And we suspect that some agents may intentionally withhold properties from the MLS in order to sell them themselves. Well, that's not the heart of the matter here at Brookshire at all. The heart of the matter is to net the most and find the best buyer, not just a buyer. Okay. So how do we do that? It's going to take a lot longer than 5 days. And when you list with Brookshire Hathaway, it takes us more. We do more, so it takes us longer to get these things ready. Again, I know there's an exception to every rule. I understand that, but I think for the most part, we've got to bury that. How many of you make it a habit already to get that exclusion form signed so you have more time to get things done? Just how many? It's pretty much in your processes already? Okay. Kathy, always. Thank you. Cindy says, I've never taken a listing without having signed the exclusion form. Okay, good. Well, will the requirement change? No, Michael, it's not likely to change. Absent of reasons to hold the house back, the MLS would like us to have that on in 5 days. And I think that's fine. But there's a lot of reasons why in this market, we're not going to be able to get that house in its best light in 5 days. So I don't see that process changing. Okay, gone are the days. You want to make some more lists here? Gone are the days in which? Gone are the days. Okay. So gone are the days that we, I'll get back to number 1, rush to put a property on the market within 5 days. 2, don't explain clear cooperation policy. 3, let's talk about this one. Don't present our listing and sales meeting. Okay. This one's going to take me a little bit of time to discuss because unfortunately, it seems some might think that this is a self-serving endeavor. Okay. And if you think that, we need to look at it from a different point of view. I understand that we have no listings. I understand we would all like to sell them in-house. I understand that the brokerage stands to benefit if we do sell it in-house, but I'm not even thinking that. So let's go back to what my first question was. What's our objective? To find the best buyer. So you guys tell me, and I apologize for using okay, I'm not going to use a name. I'm undo that. Would you rather have an offer from, now you think in your own mind, a company that is notorious for having uneducated agents that are highly frustrating to you because they don't understand what they're doing. So you think of that, you think of them. Would you rather have an offer from that agent and that company, or would you rather have an offer from a Berkshire Hathaway agent? To me, this is easy. That's the right light. Remember this best buyer. This best buyer is with Berkshire. See, it has a ring to it, you know? It's like a poem. It's got rhythm. The best buyer is with Berkshire. We could write a song. All right, Joe, drop me a beat. The best buyer is with Berkshire. Okay, so let's go back to our 5 days in our process. Why are we in such a hurry to throw this on the MLS when we haven't presented it in sales meeting? That's crazy. Because the best buyer is likely with Berkshire. So we don't want to shortcut that and skip over that. Do you guys, are you with me? Do you see it in that way? And it's unique to us, guys. This is us. It's our benefit, right? It's our network that we're proud to be a part of. We're proud that our agents are highly educated and high-level professionals, and they're good at their craft. You know, they're really top agents. Okay, a note on this. I don't think we should call it sales meeting. I think when you're in a listing presentation, you shouldn't refer to it as, we're going to present this in sales meeting. I think we need a new name. I think we need a way to describe what it is that doesn't sound, I hate to say, you know, like old school in a negative way, or an 80s sales model, or a used car salesman or something like. It just has a weird tone to me. I think we need to change the name when we present listings in our sales meeting. What do we call that? You guys have any idea on what we could call that? You know, this is a very tangible thing we can do. What could we call it? I will present your listing. What is that? What's the name? So Cindy says internal marketing within Berkshire Hathaway. I like it. Present to our in-house buyers. Very good point, John. Wasatch Front agents, we should take note on what Wasatch Back, how they conduct and promote their listings. It is different. And we can learn a lot from a lot of the practices that are going on, you know, with our fellow Berkshire agents. Very, very good. Weekly marketing sessions. Okay. Craig, marketing meeting. I like that better. I like that a lot. Marketing meeting. There's two. Lena and Craig are both thinking the same. It has a little tone of maybe network or with top agents, you know. Berkshire has a network of top agents. I will present it to them. So somewhere in there, I think that's a better description of how I'd present that to a seller. You know, we talk about speaking the language, the seller's language. Sometimes I've said speak the language of benefit. Well, I don't think we should speak this language of we're going to present it in sales meeting. I think we should speak the language of what it is. And it's a network of top agents. Okay. So if someone challenges us on this and says, well, that sounds self-serving, you're looking at it wrong. Okay. Again, go back to what offer would you rather have, all things being equal? An offer from the, you know, the hobby agent at wherever, or your Berkshire counterpart. Okay, this is easy. So we owe it to our seller in a fiduciary sense to magnify that and not skip over that process. So See, gone are the days, gone are the days in which we don't do that. Well, we've got to bury that, and we've got to inject this new habit and this new practice. Okay. Thanks for the comments, you guys. I think that's really good. I hope you are all taking notes on this. I've got a couple more gone are the days, and then we're going to pivot to this this legal issue. Oh, here's another one. Gone are the days. You've got multiple offers. This is a lot of discussion about the listing side today, but you've got multiple offers. Gone are the days in which you don't research the strength of the buyer. See, gone are the days where just the letter from the lender is enough. It's not enough. You're going to have to dig deeper than that, because we've got plenty of buyers. We want the best buyer. So we're going to have to get into the habit of doing some more research. We should speak to the loan officer in every case. And if they're not going to be candid, they need to get permission to be candid, right? So I think gone are the days in which we just look at the letter and what we have in our inbox and say, okay, we can make a decision. We should call and interview the agent, talk to the agent. Tell me more about your buyer. We're trying to make a good decision here. What can you tell me that your offer doesn't tell me? Right? Those are good questions. Or do you have any concerns on the buyer's ability to close? Is there anything in the way that you see? Right? Were you aware of whatever the property fact is? How did they respond to that? How do they look at due diligence? These are a lot of good questions that can be asked. So I think gone are the days in which you don't, dig deeper or research the buyer. Okay. Right. Lena, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Gone are the days in which we say, well, they're only pre-approved. I mean, buyers need to be qualified, and we need to verify that. If I could add to what you're saying there, Lena. Yeah, always talk to the loan officer, John. There's a series of good questions that could be asked. I totally agree. And it's always costly if we don't do this, right? Because it's back on the market. The market, someone's rejected the property. So the market tends to say, what's wrong with it? Even in this hot market, people still say that. Well, why didn't the first buyer buy it if it's so great? So we'd be really damaging our seller if we don't take the time to research the strength of the buyer. Everybody agree with these? What's gone? You agree with that for the most part? Head nods? Okay. Okay, good. All right, I'm changing the channel. We're going to keep this moving fast. Let's go to this legal issue that was brought up. Here's the situation. We've marked, I'm going to go to share screen. And so let's remind everybody why we're, okay, Zoom, hold on. Okay. So it was proposed that in this blog that if we have in 8.1 is marked is, but 8.2 appraisal is marked is not. Okay, so it was mistakenly posed that if that was the case, that you've got an is here and an is not there, that the seller doesn't need to allow the appraiser on the property to conduct an appraisal. Mark, we talked about this in sales meeting, but why is that not the case?
Well, I think it's not the case largely because of the breadth of Section 8.1. Section 8.1 stands alone from Section 8.2. 8.1 is very, very broad. Due diligence allows a buyer to conduct whatever evaluations of the property that they would like, that they deem necessary or desirable, and they can cancel in their sole discretion based on any of those evaluations. I think it's wrong to suggest that a buyer forgoes their opportunity to conduct an appraisal evaluation if they don't make the purchase, their obligation to purchase, condition on an appraisal. They can still have the appraisal conducted under 8.1. It's so broad that it allows for that. I think the easiest way to think about this is a cash buyer who's got a very strong offer. Um, in order for that cash buyer to conduct an appraisal, just so that they get a third party independent verification that their money is being well spent. To require that cash buyer to check appraisal or to say in an addendum that they're going to be conducting an appraisal, it for lack of a better term, kind of muddies that very, very clean cash offer. I don't think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
8.1 is so broad, it allows for an appraisal.
Yeah, we may have lost sight of this because of the market is trying, every buyer is trying to make their offer look better. So, and it's a little bit of a trick, I suppose, to take your eye off the issue. This line right here, and any other matters deemed material to buyer. There's no restrictions in the language here that the buyer can't do any test, including or an evaluation, including an appraisal.
It's very, very broad. That's where I get the breadth comment.
Yeah.
From.
Yeah. And I like what you said. If you look at it from a cash buyer situation, why would he not want to also verify value,
Sure.
even though it's not predicated on any financing at all?
Exactly.
Yeah, really good. So the other part of this is not just conduct it, does the seller have to allow it? So where in section 8 is there language that says the seller has to cooperate with all of these different evaluations?
The last sentence.
Right. So that the seller agrees. So there it is, guys, right here. Seller agrees to cooperate with buyer's due diligence. So they must allow it. So by the way, it was retracted. I said at the beginning, it was retracted kind of yesterday. If you looked at the new post.
I didn't see that post. Well, what did it say?
Well, he was, the way he phrased it is that we shouldn't be so hard on buyers. The market's tough on them already. We should allow the appraiser in. Like, okay, but it's not a should like you're being kind and nice and you pat him on the head, you poor buyer. Okay, it's contractual.
Right.
So, did anyone see that? Craig, did you see it? We talked about it yesterday, didn't we? Yeah. Craig's muted, Joe. You can unmute Craig if you want. But yeah, we did notice that it was kind of posed that way, like, oh yeah, we shouldn't be so hard on the buyers. It's hard enough on them as it is. kind of funny, but you could tell it was his way of not really coming out and saying I was wrong, but clearly that he didn't want the industry to object to a buyer doing an appraisal because it's not going to fly.
Right.
So as listing agents, we need to understand that if you get an offer that has that combination of is on due diligence and is not on appraisal, you're still going to be allowing that appraiser in the property. Right? So, okay. All right. Good stuff. So, what else did we want to, what was another legal twist to this, Mark? Wasn't there? Am I forgetting? Is there another legal twist to this thing?
Not that I recall, no.
Oh, I know what it was. I think what we're trying to do with these deadlines, you guys, is to we're trying to make our offer stronger. And we've only been given a few ways to do that. This is a standard form. So when you're thinking about strength of offer, what you might be trying to say is, I'm okay with earnest money being lost, but I still want the condition to cancel. You might want to think about that. So that's why we have the earnest money addendum. Like, for example, you can say, look, go under contract with me. I'm going to close. We've heard things like, under due diligence, I'll only ask for, anything that's, if it's under, say, $3,000 in repairs, I'm not going to ask you. So we've seen kind of these attempts at us to tell the other side that we're serious. We still want the right to cancel, but we still want the inspections but we're willing to put our money out there to show that we're serious. You follow me? And it just is like these conditions are all or nothing. And I think there is a middle ground in which we might want to play. By the way, Mark, I know this is not practiced or rehearsed or anything, so sorry. But Craig and I both have fielded questions lately about language that would say in an offer, the buyer will not ask for, so under section 8.1, the buyer will not ask the seller for repairs under blank. So we might want to consider addressing that because there's some complications to what the seller delivers. Like, we don't want the seller to think that just because it was a minor thing that happened, that anything minor under $3,000, they can deliver the property that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're trying to say, if we do our inspection, we're not going to nickel and dime or pick at the price here or walk it back because we discovered some minor repairs.
Right.
And if it would, but if it's a major thing, like we discover, look, we've got a roof problem. We didn't know that. That's going to be 12 grand. The buyer wants the right to cancel. It may ask the seller, may renegotiate, but if it's small things, don't worry, seller, we'll take care of that. We might want to look at some language. What do you think about that?
Yeah. I think that language would make an offer more attractive if that's the ultimate goal here. It gives the seller some assurance that they're not going to be nickel and dimed. We could easily retain the right to cancel. And once you make that agreement, you have to understand that valuation of repairs, it may become an issue. Is this below or above the threshold? Can I ask the seller to do this? That may become an issue. But for those items that are clearly below the, say, $3,000 threshold, you're basically telling the seller, I'm waiving due diligence as it relates to those issues. I'm not getting rid of my right to cancel, but I'm willing to accept the property as is with respect to those items. But I can still cancel for anything above.
Yeah.
And
the complex,
drafting, you can get into, there's a lot of ambiguity in simply saying, I won't ask for repairs that are below $3,000. There's a lot of ambiguity there, so you got to be a little careful.
Yeah, and does everybody understand that if you think about section 11 and what the seller has to deliver, we don't want them thinking that just because the thing broke and it was a minor, so it was $300 item, that they don't have to fix and repair that when they deliver the property. That's a different issue. We're only talking about the buyer not asking for a repair they found in due diligence at that current condition. So if something changes after due diligence, they still have to repair that. So it does make me nervous when we see things like, well, we'll just not ask for repairs. The saving grace could be language that says we have the right to cancel. You can come back to the negotiating table. And, if you move forward, you like what you got, but Mark, do these things make you nervous?
Yeah, they do. I almost like some very vague language in lieu of that just says, hey, the buyer's not looking to nickel and dime you, seller, and we're going to deal in good faith with respect to anything we find in our due diligence. I almost like that loose nature better because you're always going to preserve the right to go back to the table and renegotiate or cancel. So it's a difficult thing to draft, and you've got to consider all the implications and try to clean up all the ambiguities in that language. So it's
John and Sally are both asking, could that be a red flag to the lender? I don't know, guys. I maybe in the old days, probably in the old days, like if we went a year ago before COVID and all this craziness, and you're already dealing with some kind of issue of the condition of the property, that's gonna be a red flag. But in this market, the way that we're having all these creative offers, I don't think that that's gonna be the thing. I think it could be a thing, but like, for example, Bert the other day confirmed that Intercap They had no problem with our earnest money addendum or appraisal addendum following the FHA addendum. Remember, Mark, we were talking about, could the lender object to changes in the FHA addendum if we did another addendum succeeding the FHA addendum, which changed that language.
Right.
They said they didn't have any problem with it. So, I mean, lenders know how competitive it is. They want their borrowers to also win the bid. So I think they're first trying to see how they can make it work. But yeah, there's some complexity to all of this. Okay, anything else, Craig? Anything else to weigh in on that one before I turn it down?
We should just say that, it's still preferable than throwing out the due diligence contingency. And when we're in a competing offer situation and your buyer's considering all these things, and, I just really get worried when we throw out the due diligence contingency entirely. I would prefer that, you make a promise that you're not going to ask for repairs, and maybe that will enhance your offer enough to, get it accepted, and you're still not throwing away the due diligence contingency. I'm seeing it on offers every day. The due diligence contingency is checked no, and I think that's very dangerous.
Yeah, I agree with that, Craig. I think a better approach in thinking about this would be to try to cut that timeline for due diligence as short as possible. I entirely agree that due diligence should never be waived in its entirety.
And that's what's happening right now out in the market.
I think that's a mistake. I think there's better ways to make your offer more competitive. Even a 3-day, 5-day, 7-day due diligence, it's just not protective of buyers to allow them to waive that condition, in my view.
Last week, we had an offer 40,000 over, all contingencies waived. The people are getting a loan. They have a sizable down payment, and they were giving $50,000 non-refundable earnest money upon acceptance. And of course, they won the bid. I mean, no one can compete with that. There's no contingencies. And I worry about, it's an outside agent that's not with our brokerage. And I worry about, if things blow up, I think there's a pretty good negligence claim against that agent.
Could well be. Could well be.
We debated this, what was it, a couple weeks, you guys? And I think Ramon, you and I had this discussion too, I think even offline. Let's put our listing agent hat on and let's look at an offer that has no due diligence. Is that better or worse? And I propose that it was worse. That you might even consider countering back in the condition. And I think my logic for this goes like this. If there's some issue in the property, I don't care what it is, there's dozens, hundreds of different things that could be an issue. And if they weren't discoverable by the buyer because they were not given an opportunity to inspect, the seller is holding that issue and the liability that goes along with it. Because the buyer was not given an opportunity. Well, we could argue that they, they waived their right. That's their problem. Okay, but the fact remains, if that were our case, Mark, right? If that was our case, we would go, that buyer was never given a chance to see the defect.
Right.
And I think that's very bad on our buyer, or on our seller.
And the one document that's going to become even more important, which is almost always important in a dispute following a closing, is the seller's property condition disclosure, because that's the document that the buyer is going to rely on. And if there is any issue after closing, they still have that document that they can rely on the seller's knowledge. There's nothing that would prevent, at least initially, the buyer from bringing a claim based on that document.
Yeah, to look at Ramon's question, we talked about this. So the buyer is upset they lost a bid because someone else submits an offer that didn't have due diligence. I think a better way to consider this, if you're already willing to sacrifice earnest money with no rights to cancel, why not put, non-refundable earnest money and still have the right to inspect and have a right to cancel if you have a major objection with, say, title conditions or seller's disclosures or a gamut of things? That's probably a better way to go, and frankly, a stronger offer. And now we're hoping that the listing agent sees that foregoing due diligence is a dangerous thing for the seller. I mean, Mark, am I right on that? I think you and I talked about this, but would you really want to be a seller and then not take an offer that doesn't allow the buyer to have a due diligence, process?
It depends. If my knowledge of the property, was that it's fairly clean, that there wasn't a lot that I was going to be, that needed to be disclosed or that would be uncovered given an inspection, I'd be less worried about it. If the inspection was likely to show a number of, a long list of items that a typical buyer, reasonable, prudent buyer would want to have repaired, then I'd be a little more nervous about it. It depends on the property.
Well, as soon as you said it depends on the property, you know what I thought in my head? Vacant land. All right, if it's a vacant piece of property, fine.
Right.
But if it's got an amenity, I wouldn't do it. It's just, even the cleanest stuff come back to bite us.
Right.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm reminding Peter Felis had a transaction about a year or two ago with if I remember right, there was mold, and one of the young boys of the family moving in had some serious respiratory congenital issues. And you know what? We were really, really lucky in this case that the seller just ponied up the dough to fix the problem that they didn't realize was a serious problem for this family. But it could have been really, really ugly. Nobody really knew there was a problem with this mold. It was kind of in a closet. It was small. And no one really understood. So the seller wasn't intentionally so there was no evil intent here. It's not like sellers are saying, I don't want due diligence because of evil intent. It's just sometimes there's things you don't know. But so Mark, when someone doesn't know that there's a defect, is that still a problem? Is that still a case for the buyer? So the seller maybe should have known, but they didn't know. Isn't that still a case for the buyer for damages if they should have known?
If they should have known, arguably, yes. It's the seller's property condition disclosure is actual knowledge. Should have known is should they have done it? Did they have grounds to do a reasonable inspection to follow their suspicions about a condition on the property? Should have known is very tough to prove. Maybe it's grounds for a buyer to bring a claim, but whether you should have known something is difficult to prove.
I guess I was thinking of the concept of constructive, where it's like, no, we understand that you didn't have any evil intent or any ill purposes here, but it's hard for anyone to believe you didn't recognize whatever the problem was or didn't know about it.
Right.
So I guess this is why I go back to, I don't think it's better for a listing agent or a seller to take an offer that doesn't have due diligence. I just think it's a bad idea. So, I just don't want to hear a buyer. I don't want to see a case in which the buyer says, yeah, but my agent told me to win the bid, I needed to not have due diligence. And then when I didn't have due diligence, guess what? There's a problem in the property. And all of a sudden we're going, wow, yeah, you know what? This buyer really wasn't given an opportunity to discover. And so aren't we going to be holding more of the bag there than we want to? I think so.
I think so too. I think in your typical, if you think about arm's length transactions, buyer has an opportunity to kick the tires, seller has an opportunity to tell what they know about the property. And, that's a typical arm's length transaction. If that's the norm, then as it should be, waiving or having a buyer without due diligence, I think is dangerous.
Hey guys, you just got a peek into the hours and hours of conversations Mark and I have all the time. We're constantly just like debating these little issues around and around until we feel like we've got to focus. But all right, thanks for that discussion. I hope that was helpful. I think it's important. This market is challenging the way we do things. It's challenging things. I mean, who would have thought 2 years ago you'd see offers with no due diligence? Unheard of. Frankly, to Craig's point, if that happened 2 years ago, the state of Utah would have grounds to discipline the agent for even allowing such a thing. And now we're seeing it being not normal, but common. And I think we're a little out of bounds there. So we need to pivot. Okay, guys, let's go to page 61 of the coaching book, 61. We're just going to do this one tip today. I think it's really important message. This is, pure coaching here. So I hope it's inspirational for you and you get some ideas for yourself. So we've only got another 10 minutes here, so maybe 15. This on page 61, here I'll share screen and go to page 61. I think I've already got it pulled up. Yeah. So in this particular lesson here, we're talking about a principle of combining persistence and patience together. I must have missed a question from somebody because I just got a text message. Peter, do you want to ask a question? Is that why your hand is up? Peter Felix, do you? Hey, Joe, can you unmute Peter? Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Well, I had several questions now, but you made a suggestion, sorry, about the whole due diligence thing.
Yeah.
When you're saying, we should pick someone now that offers a due diligence deadline. But, the way I'm taking this is we're not attorneys when it comes to the decision our sellers are making, but obviously we can only advise. But you have 70% of agents waiving these kind of deadlines. So how can that fall back on us if we're just doing the things that the agent has written a contract to be? I mean, you know what I mean? Saying, hey, okay, you don't want to do a due diligence? Okay, whatever. And they just don't do it. How does that fall back on us as the seller? To say, no, hey, you guys must do a due diligence. I mean, how's that come back at us as representing our seller?
Mark, I'll take a first stab at this. But here, Peter, here's what I always think about. I imagine like a baton or a evil monkey. Okay. And the evil monkey here, let me stop sharing. Okay. The evil monkey is whatever the defect is. Okay. Whether we know about it or not, but that's the issue. And what I'm looking to do at every turn is to give it to the buyer. I just don't want that to be my thing. So here's everything I know. You make your decision. I think that's how I look at it. And if I don't do that, I'm holding on to either a piece of the baton, which we could say, liability, potential litigation, costs, damages. That's what's on the baton. And so I'm looking to hand that off. And if I did that effectively and the buyer buys, I got a stronger position. But if I'm hanging on to it a little bit, like I'm taking offers that, no one's doing inspections, I'm hanging on to that because I better be darn sure that I have been really frank and detailed in my disclosures, because if there's something else, it can come back and bite me because the buyer never conducted an inspection. That's what I would say, Peter. Mark, anything?
No, I think that's right. It forces the seller to really strongly consider and fully disclose every possible thing they know about the property on that disclosure, because that would be the basis for a claim down the road. Is that the buyer was somehow defrauded and the seller didn't disclose everything they had to disclose. And that's a dangerous case for a seller to have to defend. Again, you want the buyer to have an opportunity to kick the tires, so they're making an informed decision. And in doing that, that passes the baton back to section 10.2, where they're accepting as is. It's only through that process of due diligence and disclosure by the seller do we get the benefit of section 10.2,
Right.
which says that the buyer acknowledges and agrees that they're accepting the property as is, having conducted their due diligence and given their opportunity to become as fully informed as possible with regard to the property. That's where the seller, in effect, gets the benefit of 10.2. And you don't necessarily get it unless the buyer has a chance to do their due diligence.
Yeah. Peter, you still have your hand up. Is there another question, or are you good?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then Sally says, if the buyer's due diligence is checked and buyer opts not to conduct any inspections, we, the seller agencies, are not liable. Yeah, if they've been given the right to, and we didn't restrict it in any sort of a way, even by contract language, we didn't restrict it. Look, that's just one more protection for the seller. Buyer, you had the opportunity. So I think that's right too. But Mark, I really like how you said that. It's kind of what I've been saying for a long time. How do you earn 10.2 as a seller? How do you earn the protection of as is? Because you've got to do something. You can't just get as is protection. You've got to walk through 10.3. And it also has to do with what's going on in 8.1. So yeah, this has been good. Hey, I talk about legalities all day long, you guys. The nuances of our legalities are like dessert. You know those really good desserts they make at like Ruth Chris? You know what I mean? Like they're like artists have made them. And every bite is like, wow, I've never tasted. Yeah, that's what this is. Okay, let's turn the channel and talk about persistence and patience. Let's go back to this. This is just one of the kind of stories that you could read in the coaching book about a particular scenario that came. This is the secrets of getting out of a slump. This is a story about an agent who came to me and said, hey, I'm not doing too well. I've got all these things and objectives. I'm doing it looks like, here's what I was doing to generate business. And, every time I'd hear Kevin Cameron sales meetings say, we're selling more houses than we've ever sold. And, how come that's not happening for me? So all this is going on in this agent's mind. And we've all been there where, you look around and everyone's doing well. And, maybe you're in the slump and, it's a little woe is me, but I think we tend to look in the mirror, and to this agent's credit, they were looking in the mirror. What can I do? So they reached out to me. We had this session and I documented our discussion. Okay. So I think what came down is this really hard concept. How do you marry patience with persistence? I would love to hear from you guys. How do you do that? How do you stay just tenaciously persistent, but also be patient? Anyone got any life like gems here? How do you guys do that? I see it in the chat, but raise your hand. I'd love to hear you verbalize this. Where are all my veteran agents here? Most of them, Joe, are on the unshowered pages. So anybody want to weigh in on this? Ramon, go ahead. Unmute Ramon. I'd love to hear, how do you stay, disciplined in your persistence, but also give yourself some patience? How do you do that, Ramon?
Well, I'm actually going through it right now.
Oh, okay.
Last year was the best year I've had in 14 years.
Wow.
I am 90% behind last year already.
Oh, really?
So some of it is, all right, what do I need to do? And one thing I've always done is I look around, we all look around and say, look at how much better that guy's doing than me. I also look around and say, hey, I'm doing better than X% of the population. So there's a balance there. You have to remind yourself there will always be people better. But where I sit, I'm way ahead of the majority. And I appreciate that. The other thing is to refocus on basics and attend more Will Cooper classes and get rejuvenated and refocused. Now, some of it was self-inflicted. I was tired after last year. And I took 3-4 weeks mentally off, but I needed it. And so to me, it's two things. One is appreciate those that are above you and appreciate those that are below you. And you're not doing all that bad. You have to remind yourself of that. At least I do. And the other is look at what I need to do. And then that's what I do.
Nice. You guys, Ramon's volume last year was over $33 million of volume last year. I'll say that again, 33 million. It was a fantastic year. Wow. What an achievement. And thank you for being on today, Ramon. I'm constantly reminded that small decisions can make a big difference in other people's lives. And we all needed to hear from you today about this concept of being persistent and patient. It happens to all of us. I've seen a repetitive pattern. I don't know what it is about the human nature, but we tend to amplify the fear more than we do the good a lot of times. And it takes a little effort to say, Ramon says, but I also look around and go, I'm doing pretty good. I love high expectations. You guys know me. I mean, I thrive on the next plateau, the next achievement, the next finish line. I love those things. I'm good with that as long as you're good to yourself. We're just so hard on ourselves sometimes. It's not you would never treat your kids that way, your grandkids that way. Sometimes the way we treat ourselves, we would never do that to our people we love the most. Wouldn't we first go, wow, you're doing so good? Wouldn't we first recognize all the good things and all the accomplishments? But you say, but Will, I haven't had the sales that I want. Okay, let's get back to the basics. Let's do things the better way. Let's reanalyze what we can do. We can shift and keep the goal. And stay persistent in the daily objectives. I think that's the key to all of this. If we have a marathon mentality with the rest stops along the way, so we don't burn ourselves out, you're going to get there. You get there one step at a time. The marathoner who ran across Canada was asked simply, how did you do it? And he just said, my strategy was one telephone pole at a time. That was it. Not overthinking it. Because isn't it pretty daunting to think, my goodness, how am I going to do $30 million of volume in 2021? That could just seem so big, so large, and almost impossible. You know how you do it? You do it 2-3 deals a month. That's how you do it. You do
a little
2 deals a month.
that guy that ran across Canada did it on one leg. You're talking about Terry Fox, right?
Yeah,
did it on one leg.
Talk about, it's not that hard. You know what? Jim Rohn used to say, if you think this is hard, he goes, go to Cambodia and try to do business. He goes, now that's hard. So there's so many things that are good. We should just be kinder to ourselves, I guess, is what I'm trying to say in this too. But if let me dig a little deeper. If you're really committed to something, I think the evidence of that, if we were back in a courtroom and I'm the judge and I'm going to determine whether or not you're really committed to something, I think you would be able to show me evidence of the daily tasks in which are important to you. The 5 things you've got to do today. You know, the five tasks that are critical to the objective and strategy, and that you would be doing that on a disciplined daily basis. You know, we talked about our power hours. I think you'd show me your system. So how do you stay focused on the things that matter the most on a daily basis? So you don't let the whirlwind of life and the distractions and the, you know, a constant assembly line that's coming at us derail us from the things that matter most. How do you do that? And when you really, really want something and you know why you want it, you know, so if you lost sight of that, go back. What's the first thing? We said on the planning session, know your why. Why are you after this? And if that's really truly yours and authored by you, you'll find all the energy in that tank you'll ever need if it's authored by you and you know what it is. Then that'll fuel your daily discipline so you can stay persistent in those things, and then be kind to yourself so you can stay patient. We're going to have to celebrate other things than just getting a listing. We've got to celebrate other things than having a closing. We can celebrate the fact that you improved a relationship, that you got to know someone better. And that will mean business sometime when it's right for them. Think about how arrogant it would be that if I thought to myself, I'm going to go in there and give my A game to this lead, and boy, when I do so, they're going to want to buy. You know how arrogant that is? It's not founded on best principles, because you know what really matters to them is what's right for their family. That is so far more important than you bringing your A game to a presentation, right? So we should be, you know, have a little dose of humility, respect for their position, and some perspective on what really matters. And if we can be a professional at a high level in those environments, and all we did is we get to know someone on a better level, that's a victory. Later on, it will bear fruit in closings, because it naturally will, because you'll be a magnet for those things. Any other thoughts on that before we put a bow on this? I think this has been some really good discussion, you guys. If you haven't, hit the chat. I'm constantly talking about a theme that's like Brookshire, the better way. The front of the coaching book says a better way to real estate. Our better buyer is with Brookshire. It's likely our better buyers with Brookshire. It has a ring to it. That's got a song. We're going to make one. It's probably a rap, Joe. I'm thinking, you know, it's going to be rhythmic. But there's a better way to be a listing agent. Don't let the MLS tell you that you have to market that property in 5 days. Do what's best, right? Do the better way, right? There's a better way to be a buyer's agent. That means understanding these conditions and the nuances of our contracts, and study every day because it matters. That's a better way. I would rather us turn down the volume on the sales processes a little bit and stop being kind of the salesman, and be a lot better surgeon. Turn that volume to max, man. Crank the amps. Get the wattage going. That should be very loud, right? Gone are the days in which we're not explaining clear cooperation. Gone are the days that we don't slow down and show the nuances of complexities in legal contracts. That's a professional. That's how we do it, right? Hey, I love you guys. You know that. And I'm not the only one. Mark loves you. Craig loves you. Cindy loves you. Angie loves you. Ramon loves you.
I can't tolerate everybody. I'm not in the love camp. I'm just...
Yeah, Joe loves you. We all, this is a great family that we work together in. Joe, you can stop the recording. This has been a great